Greetings friends. Thanks for stopping by for a visit. If you enjoy the video, please subscribe.
Let's take a journey back in time to one of the most intriguing and underappreciated UFO cases out there, the Shag Harbor incident. This Canadian mystery is so compelling that even official government documents label the object involved as a UFO, as in, literally unidentified flying object. This isn't your average tinfoil hat story. It's got radar evidence, eyewitnesses, including police officers, and even a government-led search effort. Grab a coffee because this post is going deep. This is the full story of what happened in Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia, on the night of October 4th, 1967. Flying Saucer, Canada. The tiny fishing village of Shag Harbor sits on the southeastern coast of Nova Scotia, facing the cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean. In the fall of 1967, the Cold War loomed large, tensions were high, and UFO sightings were on the rise worldwide. Canada was no stranger to these phenomena. In fact, the Canadian government had established a formal UFO investigation process involving the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, the Royal Canadian Navy, and Transport Canada, the Civil Aviation Authority. On the night of October 4th, 1967, at around 11:20 p.m., multiple people in and around Shag Harbor saw a sequence of strange flashing lights in the sky. Witnesses included airline pilots, fishermen, teenagers, and law enforcement officers. Most described seeing 4 or 5 bright lights in a row, flashing in sequence, moving from west to east. The lights appeared to be attached to a single object, moving relatively low across the horizon before tilting at a 45-degree angle and descending toward the water. Then came the sound. A whoosh, like something gliding or cutting through the air, and a bright flash. What followed stunned witnesses. The lights appeared to crash into the ocean. Fishermen and residents believed a plane had gone down, and the local RCMP were immediately called. Within minutes, local RCMP officers and dozens of fishermen were out on the water, searching for wreckage or survivors. Among them was RCMP Constable Ron Pond, who had witnessed the object himself. He described the thing as a large object with lights, moving silently before crashing. What they found was even stranger. A glowing yellow foam floating on the water's surface, stretching across a sizable area. But there was no debris, no bodies, and no sign of an aircraft. The foam had a pungent smell and an odd texture. The next day, the Canadian Coast Guard and the Navy joined the search. Divers scoured the ocean floor for days again. Nothing. What makes Shag Harbor unique among UFO cases is how fast the government reacted, and how officially the object was classified. When Transport Canada's Communications Centre in Halifax was notified of the sighting, an employee wrote this line in the incident file: UFO reported by RCMP at Shag Harbor. Yes, they literally used the term UFO in a government document. Reports were filed all the way up the chain to NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, and Canadian Forces Headquarters in Ottawa. The U.S. Air Force was also notified, though they denied having any aircraft in the area. What adds another layer to this mystery is that pilots in the air that night also reported strange lights. 2 pilots from Air Canada Flight 305, Captain Pierre Charbonneau and First Officer Bob Ralph, flying from Halifax to Toronto at 12,000 feet, saw a brilliantly lit object. They described it as a very bright, rectangular object with a string of smaller lights trailing behind. It maneuvered strangely, not like any conventional aircraft. At one point, it accelerated and disappeared into the night sky. Their sighting was reported to the Halifax Control Tower just before the crash-like event in Shag Harbor. Here's where things get weirder. The Navy divers reported nothing at Shag Harbor, but behind closed doors, another story was unfolding. According to retired military insiders and leaked documents, the object didn't sink. It traveled underwater. Radar and sonar operators reportedly tracked a submerged object moving north along the coast, settling near Government Point, close to a top-secret U.S.-Canadian submarine detection base. For days, naval vessels monitored the area. Then, and this is according to former military personnel, a second unidentified object joined it underwater. Both stayed motionless for nearly a week. When ships were being repositioned for a closer inspection, the two objects allegedly suddenly moved off underwater, evaded tracking, and vanished. These claims remain unverified in official records, but several retired officials have supported this version in later years. Thanks to Canada's relatively open access to government records, several official documents related to Shag Harbor have been released over the decades. These include internal memos from Transport Canada, communications logs from the RCMP, reports from Maritime Command, Markham, air traffic control transcripts. These documents confirm the government considered the object a legitimate UFO. No aircraft were missing in the area, civilian or military. The search was treated seriously and involved multiple branches of the military. No explanation was ever officially offered. Unlike Roswell, which quickly became mired in secrecy and media distortion, Shag Harbor's documentation remained intact and public. That's what makes this case unique. In the years since, many involved in the event have come forward in documentaries and books. Notably, Laurie Wickens, one of the first witnesses, has consistently described what he saw. RCMP officers involved in the original investigation confirmed they were convinced something real and unexplained had crashed. Retired military and naval personnel, speaking anonymously or under pseudonyms, have given accounts of a secret recovery operation that never appeared in public files. In 2001, a formal request to reopen the investigation was filed by UFO researcher Chris Stiles, who has co-authored the definitive book on the incident, Dark Object, the world's only government-documented UFO crash. Let's break down the major theories that have surfaced over the years. 1. A secret military test gone wrong. Some suggest the object was a secret US or Canadian aircraft that malfunctioned and was quietly retrieved. But the lack of radar returns, official denials, and the underwater travel aspects strain this explanation. 2. A meteor or natural phenomenon. Could it have been a meteor crashing into the sea? Unlikely. Meteors don't float, maneuver, or submerge and stay motionless for days. Plus, the foam, lights, and underwater sonar tracking contradict this idea. 3. Extraterrestrial craft. This is, of course, the most controversial, but also the one supported by many in the UFO research community. The behavior of the object, controlled descent, underwater travel, evasion, the multiple witness reports, and the absence of any terrestrial explanation give weight to the off-world hypothesis. Shag Harbor isn't just a UFO story, it's a benchmark for how governments deal with unknown aerial phenomena. Involved dozens of credible eyewitnesses, prompted a military search and investigation, resulted in declassified documents labeling the event as a UFO, has never been explained. It also avoids many of the pitfalls of more famous cases. No aliens, no wild claims, just something unidentified witnessed and tracked by credible observers, including government and military authorities. In the age of increasing transparency around UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, cases like Shag Harbor deserve more attention. It's not just a story, it's a documented, investigated event that remains unexplained more than 50 years later. Is it Canada's Roswell? Maybe, but in some ways it's even more credible.
I wanted to dive deep into one of the lesser-known but fascinating cases in UFO lore, the Kecksburg UFO incident. It's often referred to as the Roswell of the East, and it involves a mysterious fireball, military secrecy, and a possible connection to Cold War technology, or maybe something even stranger. Here's a full breakdown of the incident, theories, investigations, and where things stand today. On the evening of December 9, 1965, thousands of people across at least 6 U.S. states and parts of Canada reported seeing a brilliant fireball streaking through the sky. Witnesses described it as a burning object trailing blue flames and leaving a thick trail of smoke. It was visible across Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. At around 4:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it apparently came down near the small town of Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, about 40 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Several local residents reported seeing and some even said they touched a metallic, acorn-shaped object embedded in the woods. They described it as about the size of a small car, bronze in color, and marked with strange hieroglyphic-like symbols. Local authorities were called. So was the U.S. Army. What followed was a scene straight out of a sci-fi movie. One of the first on site was a teenager named Bill Buellbush, who saw the object crash and ran into the woods. He described a smoking, metallic object partially buried in the ground. He didn't see any lights or windows, just the acorn shape and strange markings. Other residents also came to investigate. A local radio station, WHJB, sent reporter John Murphy, who interviewed eyewitnesses and photographed the scene. But later, Murphy's involvement would become controversial. His recordings were allegedly confiscated, and he was pressured to drop the story. More on that later. Firefighters and state police quickly cordoned off the area. By nightfall, U.S. military trucks and personnel had moved in, reportedly taking control of the crash site. According to several witnesses, the military removed an object from the woods via flatbed truck, covered in a large tarp. The military officially claimed that nothing was found, but numerous locals watched the convoy move out late that night. Within hours, the U.S. Air Force issued a statement that nothing had been found in the woods. Initial speculation that the fireball might have been a meteor or Soviet satellite persisted. The Air Force first suggested it was a meteor, then later hinted it might have been the Cosmos 96 spacecraft, a failed Soviet Venus probe that had re-entered Earth's atmosphere on the same day. But here's the problem. According to NORAD records, Cosmos 96 re-entered over Canada around 3:18 a.m., over 13 hours before the Kecksburg object was seen. NASA and NORAD have both stated there's no evidence linking Cosmos 96 to the crash. So if it wasn't a meteor or Soviet satellite, what was it? Multiple witnesses independently described the object as resembling a giant acorn, about 10 to 12 feet long and 8 feet in diameter. It had no visible seams or windows, and a band of what looked like writing or symbols around its base. Witnesses compared the symbols to Egyptian hieroglyphs or Greek letters, which has led to countless theories ranging from extraterrestrial craft to secret Nazi technology, think Die Glock. No debris, radiation, or impact crater was ever officially documented. John Murphy, the WHJB radio reporter, claimed to have taken photographs of the object and interviewed multiple eyewitnesses. He even planned a radio documentary called Object in the Woods. However, before it could air, Murphy claimed he was visited by 2 men in black suits, who confiscated some materials and pressured him to change the story. When the program finally aired, it had been heavily edited and stripped of any controversial claims. Years later, Murphy died under mysterious circumstances, hit by a car while vacationing in California. His death added to the lore surrounding Kecksburg, with some theorizing he was silenced. In 2003, investigative journalist Leslie Kean, author of UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record, filed a Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, request with NASA to release documents related to the incident. NASA first claimed it had no relevant records, then said it did, but that they had been misplaced due to a warehouse move in the 1990s. In 2005, NASA admitted that some materials related to Kecksburg were lost, fueling speculation about a cover-up. The Coalition for Freedom of Information, led by Kean, eventually sued NASA, and a judge ordered the agency to do a thorough search. In 2007, NASA finally released some documents, which were vague and inconclusive. To this day, NASA maintains that the object was a re-entering Soviet satellite, likely Cosmos 96, despite the time discrepancies. There are several competing theories about what actually crashed near Kecksburg. 1. Soviet satellite, Cosmos 96. This is NASA's official position. But as mentioned, NORAD records show Cosmos 96 re-entered far earlier and over Canada. 2. Secret U.S. military craft. Some believe the object was a classified military test, possibly a spy satellite or experimental re-entry vehicle. This would explain the swift military response and secrecy. Another theory ties it to Project Moon Dust, a Cold War program tasked with recovering foreign space debris and technology. 3. Extraterrestrial craft. Of course, no UFO case would be complete without the alien theory. Witnesses' descriptions of symbols, lack of visible propulsion, and military cover-up fuel the belief that the object wasn't of this world. There were no reports of alien bodies or occupants, but it's a key part of UFO lore now.
I wanted to share a detailed account of a lesser-known but compelling UFO incident involving Lance Corporal Jonathan Wiegand, a former U.S. Marine Corps member. His testimony, which has surfaced through various interviews and Reddit discussions, offers a first-hand perspective on a purported UFO crash in Peru in 1997. The incident raises questions about government secrecy, potential extraterrestrial encounters, and the experiences of military personnel involved in such events. In early 1997, Wiegand was reassigned to the 2nd Marine Air Wing, 28th Marine Air Control Group, Battery B in North Carolina. By February 1997, he had transferred to a section focused on laser strike operations. In March 1997, he volunteered for deployment and was sent to Peru to provide security for a radar station monitoring Peruvian drug runners. Upon arrival, he noticed unusual activities and overheard conversations in the command center about unidentified craft flying into and out of the atmosphere at Mach 10 speeds and stopping abruptly. He also observed the presence of Chinese personnel and advanced technological equipment, which seemed excessive for anti-drug operations. Around midnight, Wiegand was on guard duty when he received an alert about a possible friendly aircraft crash. At 3 a.m., he and several Marines set out in Humvees, reaching the crash site by 6 a.m. after trekking through dense jungle. They discovered a large, egg-shaped craft embedded in a ridge. The craft emitted a deep, bass-like hum that abruptly stopped upon their approach. Wiegand described the craft as having a smooth, organic appearance with intricate details, resembling art more than machinery. It was absorbing light, giving it a dark, non-reflective surface. The craft was leaking a viscous, purplish-green fluid that burned through Wiegand's clothing and caused skin irritation. He noted that the fluid's color changed depending on the angle of view. The craft had 3 recessed hatches, with the top one partially open, revealing darkness inside. Wiegand speculated that the craft had been struck by a surface-to-air missile, possibly fired by the Peruvian military. As Wiegand approached the craft, he experienced what he described as a telepathic communication. He heard a high-pitched white noise in his mind and sensed a presence within the craft. He felt a warm, loving sensation akin to familial affection and believed the entities inside were trying to communicate peacefully. He later likened the beings to angels in their demeanor. Shortly after their discovery, 2 CH-47 Chinook helicopters landed nearby. Wiegand and his team were detained by personnel in containment suits and black fatigues. They were handcuffed, zip-tied, and transported to a detention facility. There, they were interrogated for hours, deprived of food and water, and threatened with harm if they disclosed the incident. Wiegand reported that the interrogators claimed to operate outside constitutional authority and could act with impunity. Upon returning to the United States, Wiegand attempted to discuss the incident with his commanding officer, but was met with hostility and told to remain silent. He believes the government response was part of a broader effort to suppress information about extraterrestrial encounters, and that the entities he encountered were non-hostile and possibly benevolent. Wiegand's account shares similarities with other UFO testimonies, such as those of Jake Barber and Chris Bledsoe, who also reported encounters with egg-shaped crafts and experiences of telepathic communication. The involvement of international personnel and advanced technology at the crash site suggests a coordinated, high-level response to the incident. While some skeptics question the veracity of Wiegand's testimony, the consistency of his account and the details provided lend it a degree of credibility. The incident underscores the ongoing debate about government transparency regarding UFOs and the potential implications of such encounters.
Hey everyone! Let's examine a fascinating and eerie story that unfolded over the Alaskan skies in 1986. An event that remains one of the most compelling UFO encounters involving commercial aviation. This is the case of Japan Airlines Flight 1628, a cargo flight that experienced a prolonged and highly unusual interaction with unidentified flying objects, witnessed by both the flight crew and air traffic controllers. On November 17, 1986, Japan Airlines Flight 1628, a Boeing 747-200F cargo aircraft, was en route from Paris to Tokyo, with a scheduled stopover in Anchorage, Alaska. The crew consisted of Captain Kenji Terachi, First Officer Takanori Tamefuji, and Flight Engineer Yoshio Tsukuda. The aircraft was carrying a cargo of wine and was flying over the Arctic Circle, approximately 30 miles southeast of Fort Yukon, Alaska, when the encounter began. Around 6:13 p.m. local time, Captain Terachi reported seeing two bright lights to the left of the aircraft, which initially appeared to be military aircraft. However, as the lights began to move erratically and pace the Boeing 747, Terachi realized they were not conventional aircraft. Shortly after, a third, much larger object appeared ahead of the plane, described as being twice the size of an aircraft carrier, and emitting a bright light that illuminated the cockpit and radiated heat. The crew attempted evasive maneuvers, including altitude changes and turns, but the objects continued to follow the aircraft. Captain Terachi noted that the large object displayed sudden movements and abrupt stops, behaviors inconsistent with known aircraft capabilities. The encounter lasted for approximately 32 minutes, during which the crew maintained communication with Anchorage Air Traffic Control, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and U.S. Air Force radar operators initially confirmed the presence of an unidentified object near Flight 1628. FAA controllers reported seeing a mysterious object trailing the Japan Airlines cargo flight on radar, with one controller noting that the object was as close as 5 miles to the jet. However, subsequent reviews of radar data suggested that the signals might have been caused by weather interference or radar anomalies. Despite the radar data being inconclusive, the fact that both the flight crew and air traffic controllers reported the same unusual phenomena adds credibility to the incident. Upon landing in Anchorage, the crew underwent debriefing by FAA officials, who found them to be rational and professional, with no signs of intoxication or mental impairment. The FAA conducted an investigation into the incident, but ultimately concluded that the radar data was inconclusive and attributed the sightings to weather phenomena or radar malfunctions. However, the crew's consistent and detailed accounts, along with the radar confirmations, have led many to question the official explanation. Over the years, the incident has been the subject of numerous investigations and analyses, with some researchers suggesting that the objects observed were not of earthly origin. Skeptics have proposed various explanations for the incident. Some suggest that the crew might have mistaken bright celestial bodies, such as the planets Jupiter and Mars, for UFOs. Others argue that the radar anomalies could have been caused by atmospheric conditions or equipment malfunctions. Despite these alternative theories, the detailed and consistent accounts from the flight crew, along with the radar confirmations, make this incident one of the most compelling UFO encounters in aviation history. The Japan Airlines Flight 1628 UFO incident remains an intriguing and mysterious event. While official investigations have not provided a definitive explanation, the consistent reports from the flight crew and air traffic controllers, along with the radar data, suggest that something unusual occurred that night over Alaska. Whether the objects were of extraterrestrial origin, advanced military technology, or something else entirely, the encounter continues to captivate those interested in the unexplained. If you're interested in learning more, there are several resources and documentaries that delve deeper into this incident, offering various perspectives and analyses.
It has been called the ultimate type of UFO encounter, an onboard UFO experience. They used to be considered rare events, but now there are thousands upon thousands of recorded cases, and many researchers believe they may number in the millions. They come from all over the world and have been occurring for more than a century. The onboard encounter follows a fairly consistent sequence of events, and yet most cases contain rare or unique elements, often involving high strangeness. These cases contain volumes of information about the ETs, who they are, where they come from, and why they are visiting this planet. This video presents 7 such cases, each adding to our knowledge of this fascinating aspect of the UFO phenomenon. The onboard UFO encounter of Albert Lancashire. Late one cold night in September 1942, British Army officer Albert Lancashire, age 27, stood in his guard booth, protecting the secret Creswell radar site located a few miles from Newbiggin-by-the-Sea, England. Suddenly, a brilliant light in the sky caught his eye. As it descended and moved closer, it revealed itself to be a strange, dome-shaped craft. Never having heard of UFOs, Albert assumed it must be a secret advanced German aircraft. Suddenly, it sent down a beam of light, striking him in the face. He felt a floating sensation and passed out. When he awoke, the craft was gone, but he began having weird UFO dreams. Paranormal events ensued. Another UFO sighting. Many years later, his memory of his first encounter in 1942 suddenly returned. He recalled that after being struck by the beam of light, he was levitated by the beam, grabbed by 2 pygmy-sized men, and pulled into the craft. Inside, he was examined by a strange figure wearing dark goggles and a face mask, and was then returned. Finally able to interpret his experience as an onboard UFO encounter, he contacted UFO researchers. His case is considered by many to be the first documented UK onboard experience. The onboard UFO encounter of Pamela Wimmer. One morning in 1975, Pamela Wimmer, age 22, was in her home in Dresden, Maine when she heard her son screaming from the front yard. Rushing outside, she and her family saw a gigantic saucer-shaped craft with colored lights and portholes hovering at treetop level overhead. Everyone watched it from the porch until after 10 minutes, it moved away. Pamela thought to herself, "Not again." Years earlier, when she was 10 years old, she and her friend had been chased home by a silver cigar-shaped object. Then, at age 14, Pamela woke up to find 3 gray aliens in her bedroom. They grabbed her, pulled her through the wall, and to a craft that was landed in front of her home. Inside, she was given a physical exam and then a tour of the craft. They showed her a strange glowing star chart and told her where they came from. They let her look out the window of the UFO, and she was amazed to see a field of stars and the planet Earth far below. They offered to take her with them. Pamela told them to take her home. In the years that followed, Pamela and her entire family experienced a wide variety of UFO encounters, including further visitations by the Greys and one involving a praying mantis. Pamela has come to the conclusion that her family is being tracked by the extraterrestrials, and she believes she may have hybrid alien children. The onboard UFO encounter of Susan. One evening in 1968, Susan, age 8, was walking with her friends not far from their homes in Port Augusta, South Australia, when they noticed strange colored lights hovering silently overhead. Susan has vague memories of some of her friends falling asleep and herself fleeing the scene in fear. 1 year later, now in Adelaide, she had a premonition that they were coming for her. Sure enough, that evening, she woke up to see 3 short, gray-type ETs and 1 tall one enter her room. She was pulled through the wall of her bedroom and into a craft hovering over her home. Inside, they conducted a gynecological examination. They fed her a purple liquid and shone a strange green light on her. Taking her to another room, they showed her moving films of a planet populated by aliens, suffering a worldwide disaster, and said that she must return to Earth as she had an important job to do. This was the first of many other onboard experiences. Most involved physical exams, but a few involved having intimate relations with a Grey, resulting in at least 2 unexplained pregnancies. Susan has experienced a lifetime of profound paranormal and psychic events, and after going to the doctor, they discovered a strange implant in her jaw. The onboard UFO encounter of Roberta T. On the evening of June 23, 1973, Roberta T. stepped onto the porch of her home in Phoenix, Arizona, and noticed a brilliant star-like light descending and approaching. Soon she discerned that it was a strange craft of some kind. She watched it closely as a door slid open on the side of the craft, and a tall humanoid dressed in a skin-tight, white jumpsuit appeared. She exclaimed in surprise, and the being stared directly at her. Another craft appeared and darted off, and looking back at the first one, she saw it was gone. Strangely, she fell asleep on her patio, waking up in a different position. A few years later, she contacted UFO researchers and elected to try hypnotic regression. To her amazement, she recalled that the humanoid had actually exited the craft and stood right in front of her. She was levitated by him up into the craft, where she was sat down in a strange seat and underwent an unusual physical examination. The onboard UFO encounter of Francesco Ojeda. On the afternoon of March 3rd, 1976, 12-year-old student Francisco Ojeda was last seen leaving his school and heading to his home in rural Fortaleza, Brazil. When he failed to arrive, his frantic parents began to search for him. 2 days later, Francesco was found crying and disoriented, blind with first-degree burns on his skin, wandering the forest. He was rushed home, where his sight quickly returned. Francesco said that he was taking his normal path through the forest to his home when he came into a clearing, and there was a landed metallic craft. 2 short ETs stood next to it. Seeing him, they fled into their craft. A beam of light then came out of the craft, knocking Francisco to the ground. When he awoke, he found himself on board the craft being physically examined. The ETs told him that they meant him no harm, and that ETs would be coming to visit Earth in great numbers. The next thing he knew, he was lying on the ground, unable to see. Later, it was discovered that numerous people in the area saw UFOs on that night.
I was watching an interview with Chris Bledsoe and something he said about encountering an otherworldly lady. It jogged my memory on something I hadn't really given much thought to. When I was a kid in rural Louisiana one late afternoon, my sister and my mom were going to church. This was the late 80s, maybe early 90s. Forgive me, I don't remember specifically, but I was about 7 or 8 years old. In rural North Louisiana, there are massive fields that grow anything from cotton to cattle to soybeans. And as we took a turn around some trees to our left is this pretty big fiery thing hovering over a field. I say fiery because it was red and orange and bright like fire, and it was shaped kind of like the flame on a lighter, long and pointed at the top and bottom. Us kids start screaming, saying it's Jesus coming back. Which I find so funny now. BC, I'm not very religious nowadays. My mother, for some odd reason, tells us it's just a rocket, which is absolutely insane to think, because there are no rockets or space shuttles taking off in rural North Louisiana. But we were kids, what did we know? We observe it just floating there silently until it's out of sight. I couldn't tell you if it was moving very slowly or standing still because we were in a moving car, but if it was moving, it was slow. I thought nothing of it, and for decades just kind of forgot about it until I happened to see an interview or documentary about that Bob Lazar guy who claimed he worked on UFOs. One of the things he claimed was that some flying discs turn upward to travel at certain speeds with the points up and down, like this kind of shape. That made me remember this thing we saw. Here's where things get odd, so be kind to me as I'm just telling you my personal experience. Shortly after that, I started having night terrors, a fear of being in my room alone at night, and was regularly sleepwalking. It got really bad as I would start waking up in different areas of the house, waking up outside even. On one occasion, I woke up in a completely black room with no light in what I assumed was a room in my house. I had no idea. That incident in particular was terrifying and disorienting as I had to feel around to find a way to hopefully get out from wherever I was. I ended up blacking out suddenly, for lack of a better phrase, and found myself in my room in the morning. No idea where I had been or how I got out. So there have been a few missing time incidents. I also started having really serious nosebleeds almost daily, and it wasn't uncommon to wake up in the middle of the night with blood all over my pillow and face. The nosebleeds got so bad I had to go see a doctor. Also, and I have never really discussed this with anyone, I started getting these night visits from someone or something I used to call the white triangle lady. I got the feeling she wanted me to do something or go somewhere with her and was asking if I wanted to accept. I also got the feeling she was trying to recruit me or ask if I wanted to be a part of something or continue something. I should add that these experiences did not feel like any dream state I had ever experienced at the time or have since experienced. I would need more time to try and explain how it all felt. She came many times and spoke not with words, but images, emotion, and energy, even movement. It's hard to describe because I was so young and interacting with her was absolutely overwhelming. Too intense, almost psychedelic or orgiastic, but motherly too. Just very intense and incredibly abstract. I can't emphasize abstract enough. And whenever she came, I always got the distinct feeling that I was somehow standing in two different spaces at the same time. Imagine your bedroom with another separate bedroom transposed on top of it. Very odd. Like I was standing in my bedroom, but also in another room. Every time she came, I got scared and told her no and that I didn't want to be a part of whatever she was offering. To her credit, she always went away when I told her I was scared of her. And after about 4 or 5 times of this happening, she stopped coming around. Flash forward to 30+ years. I had often just chalked all of this up to an intense series of night terrors or dreams, albeit very realistic ones, or should I say beyond real, if that makes sense. Yet I have never had a recurring dream as a child or an adult, and to this day, I have never experienced a sense of awareness or a state of consciousness like I did when these interactions were happened. So, a few years ago, I was having a discussion with my mom about the paranormal and if she had ever seen a ghost. To my surprise, she had, but never told me. Now, keep in mind this happened in the same area of time that I was having my night problems. She told me that one night a light slowly began passing by her 2-bedroom windows and grew very bright. She then described this golden and silver lady coming through the wall. She didn't tell me anything else other than the fact that she was filled with deep love and a sense of healing. She had been struggling with clinical depression at the time. Afterwards, she knew everything would be okay and her depression ceased. Obviously, this could all be a series of dreams on both our parts, but the fact that we both saw a strange object over the field at the same time, then both had undiscussed experiences with a white or silver lady just makes me think. Did I encounter an alien? I don't know. Am I saying I interacted with some interdimensional being? No. All I'm saying is that both myself and my mother actually had these similar experiences relatively close to each other, which are highly strange. TLDR. Saw a fiery UAP over a field, then later started having nosebleeds, missing time, and strange experiences with a feminine entity that my mother also may have encountered.
Hello all, and I hope you're all well. Thought I'd post this here to see if anyone has similar experiences and still going through it. My fascination started around 2017 when all the news outlets released footage of fighter jets chasing UAP through the skies. I started to stargaze every single clear night until I witnessed it myself. A really bright white orb zooming around the sky, then suddenly stopping like it was looking at something. I managed to call my girlfriend out to witness it until it shot off like a shooting star where you could see the light trail behind it. I wanted to get in contact with them, so I purchased a 500-pound laser called the Krypton, which is in the Guinness Book of World Records. They started to flash me back and acknowledge me. My relationship ended and I purchased a caravan to live in on private land, on a hill in the middle of nowhere. I started using my laser there, but didn't see anything flash me back, so I went to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't feel my body weight on the bed. I just couldn't feel it. It felt like I was almost floating down very slowly, the weirdest feeling ever, and I can't explain it properly. When I realized this, I rolled to my left and onto my feet, frantically trying to find the light on the ceiling. Once I found it and turned it on, I remember looking at the bed and saying, WTF, while scratching my head. I wasn't thinking of aliens or anything and just come to the conclusion I must have jumped weirdly in my sleep. Woke up early next morning around 5:30 when the sun was rising. Opened my front window blind and there was this massive hand and arm print on the window which you can see. Now whatever did that must have been either kneeling down or 4 foot tall because it's at the bottom of the window. That obviously freaked me out at the time and I went to work showing my best friend the picture. He asked if I checked for landing spots in the field, which I did not because I was quite freaked out. Came back from work that day and went to use my first laser that night and it just didn't work. No matter what battery I used, it just didn't work. Not even a day later then, under my eyebrow swelled up as you can see in the picture. I went to the hospital and they said it was maybe to do with stress. I'm free of stress. So they gave me antibiotics. I got my laser sent back for a replacement, but then my balls started swelling up. It was really bad. When I went to the hospital and had an ultrasound, I remember the guy looking at the screen with his face scrunched up. He looked at me and asked if I'm sure I didn't cause any damage down there. I thought about telling him my story, but then decided not to and just said, I'm not sure, I can't remember. All of my tubes were ripped down there. I had to wait for an operation. It was in a bad state, apparently. Now what I have learned since is the Greys put some kind of metal-looking triangle device over your balls, electrocute it. I had my laser replaced with no explanation. I have a young boy and I didn't want to have him up there again, so I explained this to his mother, who believed me and said I was stupid for doing it because she witnessed a lot with me. Fast forward a lot and I don't even really need a laser for them to acknowledge me anymore. Sometimes I use it. My brother thought I was crazy until I managed to get their attention and it drew 3 straight lines in the sky before appearing on the horizon. He was even waving at them. I don't feel scared anymore and I don't feel threatened, and I'm aware that I've been tagged and they probably know what I'm doing all the time, but I'm okay with that. I've had a spiritual awakening since astro-traveled, put myself on the right path in this life. I live in the UK and it will be meditation time for me soon, then sleep. I'll reply to anyone tomorrow if you have had similar stories or want to ask questions. Thank you for reading and take care out there. Smiley face.
I will have to edit this, because I am still trying to process what just happened. I was laying in the hammock in my backyard, listening to music, looking at the stars, and a single bright flash of white light, almost like a camera flash, popped in the sky. I'm thinking, okay, that was cool. Probably just a meteor coming towards me, because there was absolutely no tail. About 15 seconds go by, and the exact same flash, in the exact same spot. I live in an extremely remote area of Arizona where there is absolutely no light pollution, and am an avid stargazer. I have never seen that. This is where shit gets fucking real. My whole body just got goosebumps just from writing this. I felt something, I guess a hand, almost inspecting my hair, then gave a lock on the back of my head, a gentle tug. This all happened in a split second. It scared the absolute fucking shit out of me. I'm 6', 210, and do not scare easily at all. I sat up and pulled my headphones out, thinking it was my girlfriend trying to get my attention. Where I live, when I say remote and quiet, I mean you can hear a rabbit walking through a bush a football field away at night. Trying to describe what I heard is so hard, almost like whispers and clicking. It sounds completely insane, but it almost sounded like someone saying, "I think he knows we're here," in a woman's voice. I was completely overwhelmed and consumed with absolute irrational terror. Never in my life have I felt that kind of, I guess I would call it, uncertainty. I always thought to myself, if faced with an experience like this, I would play it cool and try to interact. Well, that flew out the fucking window. I was paralyzed with fear. The only way I can describe how I felt is imagining how a trapped coyote or animal feels. I can't say I really saw anything. Think shadow people almost. After a few moments passed, still with this same terror, I was able to squeeze the words, "Okay, Please be cool, guys. Groundbreaking world ambassador as shit, right? Ha ha ha. No more clicking or whispers, but the unmistakable feeling of being watched. A massive gust of wind came out of fucking nowhere and took that feeling of being watched or terrified with it. Honestly, wow, I am in shock right now. I, with total certainty, can say I just experienced an extraterrestrial or paranormal event. No idea if anyone has experienced anything similar, because I have never looked into it. But you can bet your ass I am deep diving into that rabbit hole the moment I finish this post.
On the evening of March 13, 1997, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the skies over Arizona transformed into a canvas of mystery. At approximately 8:15 p.m., residents of Prescott Valley observed a formation of 5 amber lights arranged in a V shape, silently gliding across the night sky. The lights moved slowly, their glow casting an eerie illumination over the landscape. As the formation neared, the lights appeared to separate, revealing a massive, dark structure obscuring the stars behind it. The object was estimated to be over a mile in length, moving with deliberate slowness and complete silence. Among the witnesses was Tim Lay, who, along with his family, watched in awe as the object passed overhead. He later described the experience as surreal, noting the absence of any sound and the sheer size of the craft. The object continued its path southeast, disappearing into the distance, leaving behind a trail of questions and a sense of wonder. Around 10 p.m., a different phenomenon occurred. Residents of Phoenix reported seeing a series of stationary lights hovering in the sky. These lights were arranged in a triangular formation and remained visible for several minutes before fading from view. The light's stationary nature and the absence of any discernible aircraft led many to speculate about their origin. One witness, who wished to remain anonymous, described the lights as too perfect to be natural. The precision of their arrangement and the lack of movement defied conventional explanations. The event was captured on video by several individuals, further fueling the mystery and prompting widespread media coverage. In the days following the sightings, the U.S. Air Force attributed the lights to military flares dropped during training exercises at the Barry M. Goldwater Range in southwestern Arizona. These flares, known as LUU-2B/B illumination flares, are designed to burn brightly and slowly descend under parachutes, creating a hovering effect. The Air Force's explanation suggested that the lights observed by witnesses were the result of these flares being visible from great distances. However, this explanation did little to quell public skepticism. Many witnesses and experts pointed out discrepancies, such as the silent movement of the V-shaped craft and the precise alignment of the stationary lights, which did not align with the characteristics of military flares. The debate over the true nature of the Phoenix lights continued, with proponents of various theories offering alternative explanations. In 2007, a decade after the incident, Arizona Governor Fife Symington publicly admitted to witnessing the Phoenix lights firsthand. At the time, he had dismissed the event with a press conference featuring his chief of staff dressed as an alien. However, in his later statement, Symington revealed that he had seen a massive, silent craft moving over the city, which he described as otherworldly. As a pilot, he asserted that the object did not resemble any known aircraft. His admission lent credibility to the accounts of other witnesses and reignited public interest in the event. Adding another layer of complexity to the Phoenix Lights mystery, an anonymous individual later confessed to creating the illusion of UFOs by attaching flares to helium balloons and releasing them in a sequence. This confession was broadcast on local television, leading some to believe that the lights were a hoax. However, many experts and witnesses remained unconvinced, citing the scale and nature of the events as inconsistent with such a simple explanation. The confession did not account for the earlier V-shaped craft or the precise formation of the stationary lights, leaving many questions unanswered. The debate over the authenticity of the confession and the true nature of the Phoenix lights persisted, with proponents of various theories continuing to present their arguments. To this day, the Phoenix Lights remain one of the most widely witnessed and debated UFO sightings in history. The event has been the subject of numerous documentaries, articles, and discussions, with individuals continuing to seek answers. While some accept the official explanation, others maintain that the true nature of the lights has yet to be determined. The Phoenix Lights serve as a reminder of the mysteries that still exist in our world, and the importance of questioning the explanations provided. As technology advances and new information becomes available, perhaps one day the truth behind the Phoenix Lights will be revealed. The events of March 13, 1997, left an indelible mark on the residents of Arizona. For many, the Phoenix Lights were a glimpse into the unknown, a reminder that not all mysteries have immediate answers. The incident sparked a renewed interest in the study of unidentified aerial phenomena and encouraged individuals to keep an open mind when confronted with the unexplained. As the years pass, the Phoenix Lights continue to captivate the imagination of those who seek to understand the mysteries of the universe. Whether a natural phenomenon, a military exercise, or something beyond our comprehension, the Phoenix Lights remain a testament to the enduring allure of the unknown.
In the early morning hours of April 14, 1561, the citizens of Nuremberg, a free imperial city in the Holy Roman Empire, witnessed a celestial spectacle that would become one of the most enigmatic events in history. As the sun began to rise, the sky over the city was filled with a multitude of strange and seemingly combative aerial phenomena. This event, known as the Battle of Nuremberg, has intrigued historians, ufologists, and skeptics alike for centuries. The primary account of the event comes from a broadsheet published in April 1561 by Hans Glaser, a local artist and woodcut engraver. The broadsheet, titled Himmelserscheinung über Nürnberg vom 14, April 1561, Celestial Phenomenon over Nuremberg on April 14, 1561, features a detailed woodcut illustration accompanied by a descriptive text. This document serves as the most comprehensive, contemporary record of the phenomenon. According to the broadsheet, between 4 and 5 a.m., many residents of Nuremberg observed a dreadful apparition in the sky. The sun appeared to have two blood-red semicircular arcs, resembling the moon in its last quarter. Around the sun, there were numerous globes, some dull and black, others blood-red, arranged in various formations. Additionally, blood-red crosses and strips were visible, intermingled with two large rods, one on the right and the other on the left. These objects began to fight among themselves, with the globes flying in and out of the sun, engaging in a violent aerial battle for over an hour. Eventually, the objects became fatigued and fell to the earth, as if they all burned, emitting immense smoke upon impact. Following this intense display, a large black spear-like object appeared in the sky, its shaft pointing east and its point west. The broadsheet concludes with a religious interpretation, suggesting that the event was a divine sign meant to warn the people of Nuremberg to repent for their sins. The woodcut illustration accompanying Glaser's broadsheet provides a vivid depiction of the celestial phenomenon. It shows a multitude of objects in the sky, including spheres, crosses, rods, and a large black spear-like object. The scene captures the chaotic and violent nature of the aerial battle described in the text. This illustration has been reproduced in various publications and remains a key visual representation of the event. Over the centuries, the Battle of Nuremberg has been subject to various interpretations and theories. At the time, many viewed the event as a divine omen. The broadsheet's concluding remarks suggest that the phenomenon was a warning from God, urging the people to repent for their sins. This interpretation aligns with the religious context of the 16th century, where celestial events were often seen as messages from the divine.
Some scholars propose that the event was a natural atmospheric phenomenon, such as a sundog or a meteor shower. Sundogs are bright spots that appear on either side of the sun, caused by the refraction of sunlight through ice crystals in the atmosphere. However, this theory struggles to account for the battle-like movements described in the broadsheet. In modern times, some ufologists have suggested that the Battle of Nuremberg was an early encounter with extraterrestrial spacecraft. The description of various objects in the sky, including spheres, crosses, and rods, has been interpreted as a depiction of a UFO battle. This theory posits that the event was a rare and unexplained aerial phenomenon. Another theory is that the event was a symbolic or artistic representation, rather than a literal occurrence. Hans Glaser, as an artist, may have created the broadsheet to convey a message or to depict a popular myth or legend of the time. This interpretation suggests that the event may not have been a real phenomenon, but rather a product of artistic imagination. The Battle of Nuremberg has left a lasting legacy in both historical and popular culture. The broadsheet by Hans Glaser remains a significant artifact, preserved in the Zentralbibliothek Zurich in Switzerland. It serves as a primary source for historians studying 16th century perceptions of celestial phenomena. In modern times, the event has been featured in various documentaries, books, and articles discussing unexplained aerial phenomena and UFO sightings. It continues to be a topic of interest for those exploring the history of UFO encounters and the interpretation of celestial events. The Battle of Nuremberg remains one of the most intriguing and mysterious events in history. Whether viewed as a divine omen, a natural phenomenon, or an early UFO encounter, the celestial spectacle witnessed by the people of Nuremberg on April 14, 1561, continues to captivate the imagination and curiosity of people around the world. The broadsheet by Hans Glaser stands as a testament to this enigmatic event, preserving a glimpse into the past and the enduring mystery of the skies.
In late August 2020, a series of reports from commercial airline pilots near Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, sparked widespread media attention and public intrigue. Pilots claim to have observed a guy in a jetpack, flying at altitudes between 3,000 and 6,000 feet, prompting investigations by the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. Despite extensive inquiries, the true nature of these sightings remained elusive, leading to various theories and speculations. The first reported sighting occurred on August 30, 2020, when an American Airlines pilot on final approach to LAX radioed air traffic control, stating, "We just passed a guy in a jetpack." Minutes later, a JetBlue pilot reported a similar observation. These accounts were followed by additional reports in October 2020 and July 2021, with pilots describing a humanoid figure flying at high altitudes near LAX. The FAA and FBI initiated investigations into these reports. However, despite reviewing radar data and conducting interviews, they found no corroborating evidence to validate the sightings. The lack of physical evidence and the absence of other witnesses raised questions about the veracity of the reports. In November 2021, the FBI and FAA released footage from an LAPD helicopter showing a large, human-shaped balloon resembling Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas floating over Beverly Hills. This balloon was believed to have been released around Halloween 2020, coinciding with the timing of the reported sightings. Experts suggested that pilots might have mistaken the balloon for a person in a jetpack due to its size, shape, and movement. Aviation consultant Ross Ammer noted that jetpacks typically have limited fuel capacity, making it improbable for them to reach and maintain altitudes of 3,000 to 6,000 feet. He posited that the sightings could have been misidentifications of balloons or other airborne objects. While the balloon theory gained traction, other hypotheses emerged.
Some speculated that the sightings were the result of drones equipped with mannequins or other objects designed to mimic human flight. However, no concrete evidence supported these theories. Los Angeles Times. The possibility of a hoax was also considered, with some suggesting that individuals might have used drones or other means to create the illusion of a person flying in a jetpack. Yet, without definitive proof, these remained speculative explanations. The Jetpack Man phenomenon captivated the public imagination, leading to widespread media coverage and discussions on social media platforms. The mystery of a person flying in a jetpack over a major metropolitan area was both intriguing and unsettling, prompting debates about the limitations of current aviation technology and the potential for future advancements. However, as investigations progressed and alternative explanations emerged, public interest waned. The release of the balloon footage in 2021 provided a plausible explanation for the sightings, leading many to conclude that the Jetpack Man was likely a misidentified balloon rather than an actual person flying a jetpack. The LA Jetpack Man UFO case remains an intriguing example of how misidentifications and limited information can lead to widespread speculation and media frenzy. While the balloon theory offers a reasonable explanation for the reported sightings, the absence of definitive evidence means that some questions remain unanswered. Nevertheless, the case underscores the importance of critical thinking and thorough investigation when evaluating unusual phenomena.
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more stories like these, please like and subscribe.